the types of projects that tend to do best in terms of fundraising these days? I mean, you see the patterns across the world now, because you have, what, 230 countries with the people participating.
I didn't even know there are 230 countries, but yes, we have every country actually funds on Indiegogo. And the project that got the money from the most countries is actually Flowhive, which is actually a new way of harvesting honey. So the white box where you know that people put on the suits and smoke out the bees and then get the honey. So that technology was created in the 1860s. And there's actually a father-son combo from Australia that a couple of years ago, yeah, Aussies, that a couple of years ago decided, why is it that you need to interfere with the bees? Why do I have to worry about getting bit? Why do I have to actually put on the smoke suit? And they came up with ingenious new technology that is so simple. So check this out. They wanted to get honey on tap. So what they did was they created a cell structure. It was actually the first thing that you saw. You probably didn't notice it in the video. But inside there's these cells that look like this. So there's hundreds of them. And the bees stay inside, and they fill the cell with honey. And then, all of a sudden, you'll decide to turn a crank, manual, and the cell will open up like that. And the honey will just go down with gravity, because gravity's your friend sometimes. And it'll pool up in the bottom, and there'll be just honey waiting there. And you can literally just open up the tap, and honey will come out. No bothering the bees, no getting bit, no nothing. And the crazy thing is, this is such a known concept of, hey, we want honey, that 167 countries funded it, which is incredible. They raised like $14 million in just like a few months. Now, not everybody is going to raise $14 million, but some of the themes that you'll see is you want to have a good pitch. So you want to think about your video. You want to quickly address the audience. You want to be able to have good copy. Don't do like millions of words. Break it up with images. You want to have interesting perks at different levels. These are things you're giving in return for the different funding. You want to have updates. So once you launch your campaign, you don't want to just like sit on your hands. You want to keep it fresh. Provide an update every 5 days. That way you could keep your audience engaged for the month or 2 months that you're keeping it open. And the third thing is you want to get off to a fast start. You want to be able to bring 30 to 40% of your funding target as soon as you launch, because that way you get momentum very rapidly. So if you don't know who's funding you on day one, and I'm talking about the first 100 people or more, depending on how much you're trying to raise, you're not ready to open. And it obviously 30 to 40% becomes bigger, the bigger goal you're trying to raise. So 30% of 10,000 is smaller than 30% of 200,000, which will make you need to do more work up front to make sure that the horses are ready up front at the gate once you open it up. In terms of the types of projects, it actually doesn't really matter. It's really a matter of following those suggestions and those best practices. What doesn't work so far as well on Indiegogo, which is one type, is services. So I know some of you are services companies in here. I can't promise you that Indiegogo and selling your accounting capabilities is the right target place. The approach might work, but maybe not exactly Indiegogo with our audience and our exact techniques. We often work best where there's a tangible product. We work with the most innovative, disruptive type products, which is, all those things that looked cute in the video, they're all things that have been funded on Indiegogo, including, for example, there was little earbuds that you probably had no idea what that meant, but they're actually, they translate language on the fly.
Does that product work? Is that out now?
It's not out yet. It does work. They're actually going to be distributing later at the end of this year and then going to market early next year.
Wow.
But yeah, it's super cool.
That's really
this is Star Trek stuff, right? This is the stuff that literally you see on Star Trek, whether it's like the Scan to Do Scout, where you scan your body and it tells you like 6 of your major healthcare numbers to tell you it's like a doctor in your pocket, or the Universal Translator, which is like Pilot, that's what it's called, in your ears. This is exciting stuff. Typically, Indiegogo is about 3 years ahead of retail. And what I mean by that is now Alexa is obviously quite hot, and I see people nodding their heads. They're like, yeah, I love yelling at Alexa. But we had Jibo and other things like that 3 years ago on Indiegogo. Drones were cool already a couple of years ago. We've had drones since 7 years ago. Activity trackers with Fitbit and all this stuff interesting, a few years ago. We've had that for years. So you can see what's going to be kind of the mainstream on Indiegogo based on what's trending.
That's very cool. Where do you see this company 5 years from now, and what are the next biggest chokeholds or challenges you're going to have to solve to get to the level that you want to in the next 5 years?
I think that the access to capital and entrepreneurship is just so massive. It's not an American phenomenon. It's totally global. the idea of empowering entrepreneurs and making a few more dollars accessible and raising the potential entrepreneur success rates from minuscule to very small is a huge market and a huge opportunity. We've already leaned into like a few more businesses building on top of our core of the Perks business. So we have equity crowdfunding, which we helped change the laws in the White House in 2012 and then made it so anybody can invest, not only the 1.5% rich, but now the 100% of Americans can invest in any idea. So we think it's very early in that. Also enterprise crowdfunding. We now work with the largest Fortune 500 companies, whether it's GE or Whirlpool or Google and Philips and others, to be able to validate, source, and originate.
For them, it's not a capital need. It's really validating the product in advance. Is that the difference?
Yeah. So if I could go and answer, I'll answer that question
Sure.
then before the 5 years, which is, here's one story for you. So you're like, why would a Fortune 500 company use Indiegogo? I thought it was for small potatoes. And you know, it's funny how this evolves. When Indiegogo first started, the only people that it was right for were the people that couldn't get money from anything else. That was the only people it was right for. Then it was for the people who were willing to take a risk, like the people that were doing some indie band or something right out of their garage tinkering, and they were hoping to raise $100,000. And then all of a sudden, there was companies actually raising VC money using Indiegogo. And then a few years later, you have enterprises organically using Indiegogo. So I'll just tell you one story. So GE has over a $7 billion line for refrigerators. They make a lot of money on refrigerators. And for them, innovation is going from a cherry wood handle to a walnut wood handle. So no one wants to mess with their sales channels, you know, getting anybody confused, messing anything up. But for 20 years, they've been sitting on this R&D, which is some people out there, a good chunk of them, like chewable ice. They don't like the hard, dense ice, which is rectangular, dense ice. They actually like chewable ice. Anybody here like chewable ice? All right, well, they should have called you to find out. But anytime they went into the executive meetings, the executives always said, we're not risking any money on investing in chewable ice. We're not changing our refrigerators. This is not a good idea. But the R&D department had the research. Remember customers and being customers? They had the research. And obviously your room has the research. No, 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 no. Until finally they have an executive meeting, they say, the R&D guy says, I'm going to try this on Indiegogo if you guys don't care. And they all laughed. Indiegogo, whatever, have fun. So what he did was, he wasn't going to create a refrigerator. He just wanted to prove that people like chewable ice. So they created a countertop device, which is counter to what they always do, because their sales model is they need a human standing in front of big appliances selling you something. But they created a countertop device just to see if people would buy a few hundred units. They ended up selling thousands.